Welcome in. And we are talking about a really nice series win against the team that came in to this series in Philadelphia that was playing much better since firing their coach and Don Mattingly taking over. Probably not all, Donnie Baseball's doing here. I think some of it was positive regression for the Phillies. Some of it was the schedule. Some of it was just, I think, guys like Bryce Harper sort of, kind of finding their form after the first month of the season. Nonetheless, this has been a Phillies team that's been playing better, a Dodgers team that was playing well coming in, and coming off the heels of a Brewers series and then the Rocky series sandwiched in between. This was a good test for them. They get the Phillies at home. They face Wheeler in Game 1. They beat him with the 4 solo homers. Blow Game 2. That's kind of one of the more annoying losses I think of the regular season so far. And then they make this one a laugh or give Yamamoto some run support today. And are able to pick up the win in Game 3. So, a lot of good things, a lot of positives here. You saw guys like Ryan Ward and Alex Freeland get going with the bat a little bit. Those were big positives as well. Kyle Tucker, I think, went 2 for 4. Had that ball off the bag that ended up being a big hit. Bruce, give me your thoughts on not just this recent stretch of baseball for the Dodgers, but what we saw this weekend as well.
Yeah, I think that they played really well this weekend. You mentioned yesterday it was really just that 8th inning that was the only blip. Otherwise, this very easily could have been a series sweep of a Phillies team that has been playing very good baseball coming in. So I think that's all positive. There's been a little bit more perseverance, I think, lately through even when things aren't going perfectly. I think the Dodgers have found ways to get it done a little bit more than they had in the last couple weeks before this most recent stretch. Stuff like Yoshinobu Yamamoto today, I don't think anybody would say he had his best command or best overall stuff, and he struck out 10 guys and got through 5 1/3 scoreless. So there's been some more outings like that. Some guys are still working through it. Kyle Tucker, Will Smith, that haven't really gotten going all the way yet, but even Tucker with a couple hits today. There's been more of those things that have started to show through. And then some of the guys that have been producing all year have continued to do so. Andy Pages looks absolutely fantastic after he started the year on fire, had a little bit of a cool off period, and now he's right back to looking fantastic up in the 2 spot in the order. So there's a lot of positives right now. The Dodgers are still trying to get everything fully figured out at the bottom of the order. They sent Ha-Seong Kim down, Alex Freeland back up, but with Freeland homering today and playing some great defense, I think that they feel good about that too.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Freeland? Kind of getting he's going to get some runway here with before Edman comes back, I think, and Kim being replaced by Espinal. What are your kind of thoughts on just kind of how that second base position has been handled lately?
Yeah, I think neither guy has really taken the job and ran with it. I have really been in the camp for the entire year that I think Freeland is the guy that makes more sense to be the starter there. I think that he has the potential to develop into some better at-bats, and he's shown that in flashes so far this year. He's also got a little bit more of the pop to tap into, and his patience at the plate, I think, should fit in that 9 spot. Hasn't always shown through statistically, but I think that we've seen the Dodgers go back to him if they didn't think that he had the better starter sort of floor right now. I don't think they would have made that switch again. They would have just let Kim try and figure it out in the big leagues before. Edman is not that far away. So I think that was a little bit telling there, but he continues to play such great defense, Alex Freeland, that I think just that part by itself really makes him valuable to have in there. Kim is a good defender too, so I don't mean to make that like it's a comparison thing, but ultimately neither guy has really played up to a crazy level, and that's going to be Tommy Edman's job once he's back. He's already playing in Oklahoma City, played out in center field today, so I think that's something interesting to think about, less about for me right now which guy is going to have the job at this very moment in time. I think the thing to watch is once Tommy Edman is back, I don't think the Dodgers are going to play him 100% of the time, especially against right-handed pitchers. So the competition to watch at this point is, are they going to keep Alex Freeland in the big leagues and give him some starts against righties at second base when Edman gets days off, or are they going to flip it again and bring Kim back up? That's mainly the thing that they're running for right now.
Yeah, I think part of that decision will be determined by how Freeland makes adjustments offensively. Because I think one thing with him is, well, we've seen like quick flashes of like, oh, okay, this could be the makings of like a big league hitter, like a productive offensive player. as the league has adjusted to him, as his book has gotten thicker in the big leagues, he's kind of failed to make the counter adjustments so far. And so has Kim. Like, neither of these guys has won this job, right? Like, I think if Edman was healthy, obviously neither of these guys is part of the conversation. But to your point about, like, you know, will they keep him if he's performing? Will they keep him once Edman does come back? And maybe Espinal is the guy again who gets removed. You know, I think will come down to, can he figure out how to make those adjustments now that the league has sort of adjusted to him and understood, like, okay, this guy's going to be patient. Maybe we can pound the zone. He doesn't swing enough in the zone sometimes. So, you know, there's a little bit of a report now with the sample size that Freeland has given everybody. And it's a matter of can he figure out how to make that big league adjustment? Because that's really where the guys who have longer careers in the big leagues, and I'm talking about like long enough to get into like arbitration, let's say, so 3+ years, a lot of that sticking is them figuring out how to make those adjustments in the big leagues. And so far we haven't seen it yet from Freeland. But you know, we hope that he's not a classic kind of like quad A guy. Like we kind of saw that from James Outman a little bit. But yeah, I think that, you know, today is obviously, you see like the potential that's in Freeland.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, the glove is so good on defense that just setting that as a baseline, really, if he can just find the approach that he needs at the plate to just get on base at a regular level, and then just let a little bit of the power show through. He doesn't need to be like a 115 weighted runs created plus. Doesn't need to be a well above average offensive player to be really valuable to have in the lineup. With his glove at second base, literally, if he is just league average or even a little bit below it offensively, then that's a positive player to have in the lineup at the bottom of a Dodger order to try and set the table for Ohtani at the top and then just flash the leather on defense.
Yeah, for sure. That 9 spot in the order is ever important with this particular team because Ohtani hits leadoff and he's, right, you know, arguably the best offensive player in baseball. You know, second best if you know, we're being nitpicky. But Ryan Ward, you know, big league, you know, first big league homer, and then he makes a nice play in left field where, you know, the whole knock on him this entire time, at least the biggest knock, has been like he can't play defense consistently at the big league level. And you know, obviously that's still probably true, but he did make a nice play today. What are your thoughts on what we've seen so far in this really, really small sample from Ryan Ward?
Yeah, ultimately, he's not afraid of the spotlight at all. It was the same thing when he came up in Colorado, and he just looked like he assimilated very easily into the big league environment and just kept doing his thing. And I think that's a trademark of a guy who has played over 700 games in the minor leagues in his career. Nothing's going to faze him because he's been waiting for this moment for a long, long time. And in other organizations, he would have gotten it a lot earlier. Ultimately, I think the only reason he's in the organization is for this exact scenario of if one of the corner outfielders for the Dodgers got hurt, he was going to be the first guy up. That's why they kept him on the 40-man roster. And now he's up and he's going to get that runway. That's why they kept him in the offseason and didn't let him get taken by another team in the Rule 5 draft or just cut bait. They kept him for this exact scenario. And so the Dodgers clearly trust him to get a little bit of runway, at least as long as Teoscar's out. Obviously, there's been a ton of chatter about James Tibbs and everything he's done in AAA this year, but as he's nursing a little bit of, I think it was a forearm thing that Fabian Ardaya reported, but he hasn't been playing the outfield. And even if he was healthy, I don't think it would have been him because the only reason Ryan Ward is in the organization is for this exact scenario. So I think the Dodgers are perfectly comfortable with handing him some starts in left field. Alex Call's playing really good, so I don't think that Ward is necessarily going to be in there every single day against righties, but some kind of split between those two guys is certainly good enough to tide over for now until Teoscar gets back.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. So you mentioned a minute ago Kyle Tucker, and he's not had the kind of season I think that we all expected him to have at least 2 months in so far. You know, he's not been that $60 million a year player. Not that he was probably ever going to, but, you know, I think the expectations were obviously higher than what we've seen from Tucker so far. He went 2 for 4 today, but Dave Roberts did speak about Kyle Tucker during his pregame media scrum. He talked about just sort of, you know, he's not walking at the rate that is typical of him, and that's kind of a red flag. Talked about him being a little too hyper aggressive during at-bats, and that was another sort of area of concern for Dave. Tucker hit on the field, took BP on the field. I think it was yesterday, which is a rarity for him. He's like Shohei in that he typically doesn't do that. He was hitting off of velocity against the pitching machine, which, depending on who you talk to, was like fine or like maybe not great. So there's still, I think, a lot of mystery and a lot of concern about, why Tucker is where he's at. I was looking up some numbers. This was interesting. I don't think it's telling of necessarily anything, but just like, it's just interesting. So looking at his splits, away from Dodger Stadium this year, he's got a 140 weighted runs created plus, which is like elite level, right? Like that's MVP caliber if you're able to carry that overall number across a season. Then you look at his home number and it's 73, which is like you're getting DFA'd if you carry that number across the entire season overall. So it's just really interesting to kind of see those numbers. Again, I don't know that they're necessarily telling of anything in particular with him, but to Dave Roberts' comments, like the approach has seemed continuing to seem very different than what Kyle Tucker has historically been. Any thoughts about like what you're seeing with him and what the issues could be, or if there's any positive signs that like, okay, maybe he's close to turning a corner? Because it looked like we had that maybe a week or two ago, and then he sort of regressed since then.
Yeah, and even like I think it was probably closer to a month ago now, the walk rate really started to go up, and now it's come back down again. Like you highlighted, that was the thing that stood out to me in Dave Roberts' comments before the game about what he's seen with Tucker. And yeah, I've noticed it too. It's a lot of early count swings on balls that he's not getting good contact. I think you're okay with early count aggression if it leads to hard hit balls, but for Tucker, a lot of the times it's been weakly hit choppers to second base and balls that you just don't want at bats ending that fast for bad results like that. I think the biggest concern for me with Tucker has just been overall, like we talked about, the approach hasn't looked right. And there's just been a lot of at-bats that he doesn't look competitive. He falls behind very easily with foul balls and just looks uncomfortable. And then pitchers wind up taking care of him where it doesn't feel like he has that presence and the threat in the box like you expected from him coming in as a superstar. That's what he was. And so that part's been a little bit surprising and concerning for me this year, that not only in the statistical output, but it's just looked like he's searching for it and like he just hasn't found the confidence. He's shown a lot of frustration. So I don't think that it's been any of the stuff that was talked about during the offseason of like, maybe this guy doesn't care, any of that stuff. It just looked like that he hasn't found his niche in LA to feel like that he's a part of this Dodger machine and that he's a dangerous player too. It looks like he's still searching for that confidence to step in the box and feel like that he can be the all-star Kyle Tucker, who was the guy on the teams that he's been on before this one. But it seems like he's struggled to step up to that level when he's underneath guys like Ohtani and Freeman and Betts and all these other superstars on the Dodgers. The at-bats just have to get better for him to try and trend upward.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. 300 says going to start calling Kyle Mr. 4-3, which is, I believe, in reference to him rolling over to second base a whole bunch. Yeah. Dave also mentioned about him too, like even when he was, when the numbers were getting better, when the results were better a couple of weeks ago, that like, it still just didn't feel right for him. Still didn't look right. Yeah. He said that Kyle Tucker was still, probably feeling better about the results, but still knew that everything wasn't there where it should be. And I think that's a testament to or it's evident by the fact that he was, hitting outside, taking BP outside yesterday, hitting off the pitching machine and hitting velocity. So, he's doing the things that he needs to try to work through this. But yeah, I think it's aside from probably a mechanical thing, which may have stemmed from like not getting the results earlier in the season, that could be part of it now. But I think early on it's just been a general approach. And when Dave made comments a few weeks ago about like, it feels like we don't have a game plan when we go in there. Like, I don't think he was singling out one player in particular. I think he was talking about, just a group of guys and an overall mentality with some of the hitters in the lineup. But I would put Kyle Tucker squarely in the mix, of that group of players who it felt like was just going up there without a real plan. Has at least that part, in your opinion, started to improve a little bit?
I don't know. To be honest, I haven't really
Yeah.
seen it because, like I said, there's just been so many where he steps in and it's first pitch like weakly hit balls or choppers that sometimes you hope get foul and just bad swings overall. And I think the other part for Tucker that I've been waiting on to sort of come through is more power production too. He only has those 4 home runs, and it's been a while since he hit one, and that really plays into the approach being bad. The softly hit balls and just B or C or D swings early in counts and in hitters counts. You're just not going to find slug when that's the approach that you're taking into the box. He's not getting off the powerful swings that he has in years past. And so I still think that he's searching for it. I still think he's searching for the approach. I think that to me, it's almost looked like he's a little uncomfortable with the way that pitchers are coming at him too on previous teams. I think it probably was a lot easier for him to take patience into the box and know that pitchers are going to be pitching around him a little bit more. But now, especially with him down in like the 5 and 6 spot in the order a lot with guys on base ahead of him, pitchers are coming right after him. And I think he's struggling to find the response and adjustment to be aggressive early in the count, but still be hunting for pitches at drive instead of just swinging and ending at bats quickly. There's been a lot of those like runners in scoring position and chances for him to come through that the at bats just feel really disappointing of pop outs with guys on third and less than 2 outs or quick rollovers where the at bat is just extremely unsatisfying.
Yeah, for sure. And he's come up with plenty of opportunities. Like even though the offense went through that dry spell for a while, it wasn't like they weren't getting guys on base, and it was just like having at bats like we're talking about with Tucker, where they couldn't get those guys over or get those guys in. J.Y. Kim says might Tucker still be recovering from his injury? So last year he had the hand injury or hand or wrist injury with the Cubs.
Kind of broken bone in there.
Yeah, and so he was off to a really good start with the Cubs last season. Then that injury happened, and he kind of he sort of tanked from there. I don't know that that's an issue at this point. It's possible. Obviously, no one has mentioned anything like that. The Dodgers didn't say like, oh, give him some time or anything like that. Like we're trying to make sure that thing's 100%. But who knows? Like there's when it comes to hitting, like there's hand injuries that can linger for like a significant amount of time. We haven't heard anything, like I said, that he's one of those guys or that this injury that he had was one of those kinds of injuries. But any thoughts on that, Bruce?
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been any chatter about that, so I wouldn't think so. But I think the part of the injury that could still be stemming is just the lack of confidence. When he got back for the Cubs last year, he was not the same guy after coming back from that broken bone. And I think that was part of why the Cubs hit free agency and they weren't really even thinking about bringing him back. Obviously, the money is a big part of that too, but we all talked about it the whole offseason, that there was a weird feeling of being perfectly content with him walking from Chicago. And he did not finish the season as himself there either. So obviously, it's been 2 months now of 2026, but you can extend that back to the end of 2025, that it's been a little bit now since Kyle Tucker was hitting at his regular production. That doesn't mean sound all the alarms and he'll never get back to the guy that he's supposed to be, but it has been a decent stretch of him struggling and trying to find it again.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on to Yamamoto, another pretty strong performance from him today against, again, a lineup that had been putting the ball hitting the ball with some authority a little more often lately. He strikes out 10. His command wasn't great. Effectively wild, I guess, is a fair assessment of what he did today. He was inefficient, I thought, with some of this. He threw more than 100 pitches and he didn't get through the 6th inning. But still, a pretty good outing. He allows the 1 run, and his ERA for the season is back under 3. He did not allow an earned run. And the ERA is back under 3 now. Dave spoke about Yamamoto before the game, and one of the things he said about him was just sort of the professionalism that he's seen over the course of his time here, and how that's gotten better and better each season as Yamamoto's gotten more comfortable in America, and been more comfortable as the guy who's at the front of the rotation. Ohtani obviously is getting the big Cy Young talk, but I think Yamamoto has been a stopper for this team. At least for the last season plus. And so Doc was asked, like, what makes this guy, like, why do you would consider him an ace? And he just, like, he beats good teams. He manages pressure. He manages leverage. He's able to limit damage even when things maybe don't go his way early, which we've seen at times this season with that ERA in the first inning. I think coming in, it was like in the sixes.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's this outing today against the Phillies comes off, I think, 2 7-inning 1-run performances in the previous 2 starts. So he throws this on top of that. He's looking back. He had some early struggles earlier in the season, but he's looking more and more like the guy that's rounding into form to be the Yamamoto that we've come to know and love.
Yeah, he's the Dodger ace. And you talked about Dave Roberts has asked that question. To me, what makes Yamamoto the ace that he is that starting against Milwaukee, I think he only had like 3 strikeouts. It was not his traditional way of it was soft contact, but he got it done, got through 7 and gave the Dodgers a good chance to win. Today, it was the command that was a little bit off and he was getting the whiffs, but this just shows you he can get it done in a multitude of ways. And Yamamoto is, like you said, comfortable enough now. He's taken that mantle of being an ace, and he just looks like he is comfortable in his shoes on the mound to go out, feel how the outing is going, and then just get through it. And today was a battle, despite the line looks pretty good, 5 1/3, no runs and 10 strikeouts. That all looks and sounds good, but he was pitching through some jams and he was having to work through it a little bit, but that he did. And he gave the Dodgers a great chance to win, got the offense a big lead. And even with the 2 main lefties in the bullpen unavailable today, he went back out for an additional inning and got another couple batters. And it's those kind of things that really make Yamamoto the top guy in this rotation, especially now that Snell and Glasnow are both on the injured list. A lot of pressure has fallen on to Yamamoto to continue to give good outings like this, and it's exactly what he's done.
Yeah, and he's getting run support too. Like, I mean, that has to help him mentally, right? Where he's able to understand, like, I don't have to be so perfect on these days when the team's going to actually score some runs for me, because they've been notorious for sort of leaving him out to dry and 1 or 2 runs during a Yamamoto start where he might only allow 1 or 2 runs himself. And so in your opinion, Bruce, does that free a guy up mentally, even when he's as good as Yamamoto, or is it something that they're just like, you know what, I don't really care, I'm just going to go out and do my half of the frame and make sure that I'm putting the team in a position to win? How do you think that pitchers balance that?
Like, ultimately, I think that has to be a factor somewhere in the mental, even if it's subconscious. But I do think that a guy like Yamamoto, who is as big of a professional as he is, I noticed it like all through last year when he was going out and not getting the run support. I think that he is the kind of pitcher that finds a way to compartmentalize just what he's doing and not worry about the other side of the ball and stay focused on his own process and going out and being the best pitcher that he can be. So I don't think that it's the biggest deal in the world, but it absolutely is a factor for a pitcher to be able to go out and let his shoulders down a little bit and not worry about a single potential swing really messing up an entire ball game. And game like today, the Dodgers got a lead and he was able to go out. And even as he's working through and battling a little bit, like we said, I think that battle becomes a lot easier when he knows that it's not a 0-0 ball game where any one mistake could put the Dodgers behind.
Yeah, for sure. It's got to be a little freeing when you can look up in the middle of your start and go, oh, okay, I got a little bit of cushion here, and it helps guys like if they can pound the zone a little more, they can maybe take chances a little without having to nibble so much, and in an attempt, it didn't work today, but in an attempt to maybe be more efficient and things like that, it's helpful. It could be the difference between a guy getting into the 7th inning or not, and so anytime that I think they can give him even a little bit of cushion. Like it feels like 3 runs for Yamamoto is like a lot based on what we've seen him get in the past. So yeah, it's gotta make some sort of difference for him. His countryman, Roki Sasaki. I want to talk about him, and I want to get your thoughts on what we saw from him yesterday in the middle game of this series against the Phillies. But first, I want to pause for a second and tell everybody about our sponsor, Prize Picks. If you're not familiar with Prize Picks and the Prize Picks app, really simple to get started. It's a really easy way to get involved in games, across all sports, the NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball right now. The World Cup is coming soon, so I'm sure there'll be plays there. But one of the things where I think for an app like Prize Picks, one of the ways to get into this thing is like, it's a very easy way to say, basically, more or less, is Shohei Ohtani going to get 1.5 hits today, more or less, and if he ends up with 2 hits, then you win. And it's a really easy way to play. And for somebody who doesn't want to think too much about what odds are, what the numbers might be, it's a good way to kind of get into this for somebody. So I think that's a huge benefit of Prize Picks. And one of the benefits of having them as our sponsor is you can play for as little as $5 and you can get $50 in free lineups. And so they're broken into $5, $10 vouchers. No extra cost, just you sign up. There's a link in our description. When you do that, remember to use code HMA when you sign up, and that's how you get the free plays. Again, really simple way to get involved, makes the games a little more interesting for you. Prize Picks is only eligible for those who are at least 18, 19, or 21 years old, depending on where you live in their jurisdiction. Please make your picks responsibly. That's Prize Picks, wonderful sponsor of our show. So we thank them for that. Okay, Bruce, I want to get your thoughts on what you saw yesterday from Roki Sasaki. I think the general consensus out here is that what we saw from him in the second game against the Phillies, 5 1/3 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run. It was on a solo home run, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. Aside from that, some of the other numbers that stood out was his fastball. The vertical break was a little better yesterday than it had been in the past. It was up 1.5 miles from normal. He hit 100 maybe a handful of times, and I think I saw there was something like 15 fastballs that touched either 99 or above in that outing. He said that there was some stuff mechanically that's starting to come together now that they've been working on. Dave said that, the training staff has been with him in the weight room trying to gain strength and gain that durability, and that's helping as well. What are your thoughts, Bruce? Because at this point, over his last 3 starts, he has a 2.08 ERA. That's 17 1/3 innings. He's allowed 11 hits, 4 earned. Here are the 2 numbers though that really stand out for me when you just kind of read the traditional stat line stuff. 19 strikeouts against 3 walks. And I mean, at any point in April, if you would have said that would have been a split over a 3-game sample, we would have been falling all over ourselves to get to that point. And he looks like he's just starting to get better and better. Starting with that Angels outing where we're like, okay, this looks very good, but it's the Angels. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's see where we can go from here. And then he has another pretty good outing against the Brewers, 5 innings only. He only went 5, but he only gave up 2. He struck out 4, walked a couple. Not great there, but very serviceable for sure. And then you saw what he did yesterday against the Phillies. So what are your thoughts? Was this his best outing as a Dodger? And what are you seeing change for him that's making him more successful lately?
Yeah, this has looked like his best outing, I think, for sure. The stuff looked a lot better, and he just looks like a pitcher in the month of May. He looks like he's out there like everybody else in the rotation, instead of it being a special start day where the baseline is really not a great expectation. Roki all of a sudden now has gotten to a point where he's just like the rest of the organization, where the expectation for him going out is to deliver a really good outing. Yesterday, the stuff was really up. His fastball velocity was high. And I think the biggest thing that I've noticed, like you mentioned a little bit already, his mechanics look so much better. They look simpler. It looks like he's delivering the ball consistently in the same way, instead of it at the beginning of the year and through spring training when he struggles. It looks like his mechanics are different every single time that he throws the ball. Now it looks like he's found a consistency to be able to throw strikes. Like you mentioned, only 3 walks in this last stretch compared to those 19 strikeouts. And the extra tick and a half that he got yesterday on the fastball is really the separator for me that makes this his best outing. Roki does not have the greatest movement on his fastball. We've all said that and know it. He needs the velo. And so to get back to that 100 miles an hour, he was blowing guys down yesterday. I really think about Adolis Garcia.
Guys like Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah, Schwarber, Adolis Garcia was getting absolutely pummeled with the fastball. And that's not something that we've seen a ton for Roki over this last year and a half or so as he's struggled. So I think that looked good. I've also really loved the development of his slider. That pitch has really established itself as a true third offering that he can rely on. that slider had Trey Turner looking silly a couple of times yesterday. So, and then the splitter is obviously always great. So I think with the development that he's made mechanically with his strike throwing and then the stuff ticking up a little bit, the groundwork is all there for Roki to be building towards the guy that he was supposed to be progressing towards again. So it feels like we're back on track, which is a big thing for him.
Yeah, for sure. That slider has become a plus pitch for him too. And I think he's gotten more consistent with his release point, more consistent with his mechanics. Those two things are probably aligned there. And when you're able to start tunneling and getting those three pitches, and the fourth ball splitter combo, whatever that is, the slider and now the fastball, all coming out of like sort of the same slot, the same point, and they're mirroring each other in terms of right as they come out of his hand. I think that's where you're starting to really see hitters, a little off balance now. They can't sit on something. They can't keyhole the fastball. And it was a lot easier to do that when it was sitting at 96 too. And he wasn't throwing a ton of strikes. That's when we saw a lot of the hard contact against him. But, with those other pitches, playing up, and then, if he's able to give himself a margin for error with that fastball by throwing it consistently 98, 99, he becomes a much different pitcher. Like, even though all the repertoire is all the same, he starts to locate some of that stuff and get that extra little velo bump. Everything plays much differently, and the margin for error for him goes from basically minuscule to like fairly decent. I think we saw some of that against the Phillies because he was putting fastballs where you would typically go, you cannot throw the ball there. And when he was throwing 96 or 97, we saw the reasons why you can't put the ball middle or, upper third and split the heart of the plate, because it's going to get hit in the big leagues. When you're throwing it at 99 and 100 and you're putting by guys like Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper and, those caliber of hitters, you start to see where that stuff plays and why it matters. The margins are so thin here, but if you're able to get up on that other side of them, you can have outings the way we're seeing him have right now. I think now it's just a matter of continuing to be consistent with the strike throwing, which is a big thing. Like this season has really turned once he started to get in the zone more and get in the zone early. And then beyond that, I think he's able to really start to build some confidence with that other stuff. And like, there has to be a massive mental side of this for him where he was talking earlier in the season, like, I don't know what to expect from myself. If they need to send me down, like, I understand. And that's basically where he was with it. And now he's saying like, yeah, it was a good outing. I'm still not satisfied. He's sounding a lot more like Ohtani in that way. And he's got a long way to go to get there. But all of that, right, has to be a huge bump for him mentally to say, like, you know what? I now have the confidence that I belong at this level.
Yeah, he looked like he fit yesterday. And there's been so many times that he hasn't looked like that he was comfortable or like he was meant to be on that big league mound. And in this last year that he's been struggling, yesterday and through this last month, he's looked like that's where he's meant to be. And you just put yourself into a mind of a hitter that was facing him before these adjustments. Really, all hitters had to do was step in and look for the hittable fastball. And if they saw splitter, they took, and then they didn't have to really worry about a third pitch at all. Adding that slider and then just throwing his pitches for strikes, including the splitter, just completely changes the game, because now hitters have to be worried about all three pitches, and he's throwing them with confidence. He's throwing them in good spots, and the extra couple ticks on the fastball means that they can't just wait for that and hit it every time. So everything is really progressing for Roki, and I didn't know if this was going to happen this year, especially as quickly as it has. It seems like that the mechanical jumps have really happened quickly, and now, we just have to hope that he can find this and keep it. But in the month of May, 3.18 ERA and a WHIP just below 1, those numbers play. And as long as he's doing that, then he's going to be in the big leagues.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Super chat from JY Kim says, it's satisfying to watch a player grow up in front of our eyes. I know many have been impatient, but Roki will look stellar by the end of the season. Speaking to sort of the sentiment here of this comment, there's been so much noise around Roki, right? He's been one of the most polarizing figures in this organization, I think, in a really long time. And part of that is he came over billed as like this guy who could sit at the front of the rotation immediately. He has the triple digit fastball. He had the big nickname in Japan, and and the expectation was he's going to come over here and do all of those things in the big leagues. It did not happen right away. Bad first season, sort of salvaged by a decent postseason performance. Not great, but a huge improvement for where he was as a starter last year. And then high expectations coming into this year, probably based on merit, did not deserve a spot in the rotation coming out of spring training this season. Could not figure it out early, basically for all of April. And then you started to see signs of things kind of shifting, and we're here now. So, but Bruce, how have you seen sort of the development of the narrative around this guy, from the fan base, the way the team talks about him as well has even been, it's been up and down. And then just sort of like, where do you see this going with him? If you can kind of look out and say, okay, we're seeing the progress now. There's some light there.
Yeah, so I think the development of the expectation has been interesting to watch. The more that he struggled, the less people were, quote unquote, in his corner of thinking that he deserved to be in the big leagues and with the starting rotation spot, to the point that at the end of April, I think that he was only up because the Dodgers didn't have everyone healthy. And I don't think that was any secret. I don't think anybody would have disagreed. And it almost felt a little bit to me like that bottoming out of the expectation was almost a little helpful, because then there wasn't that pressure for him going out every single outing like he was pitching for his spot or trying to prove to everybody that he deserved to still have that ceiling and everything. And now it's looked like he's been able to make the adjustments that he needed to make without, the AAA thing looming or all this constant discussion about what Roki Sasaki is or whether he should go to the bullpen and all those things. It's felt like that he has gotten more onto a regular level with other guys in the organization, instead of being this grand figure of Roki Sasaki that's supposed to go out and be an ace all the time. And now he's building back from where the expectation had bottomed out. He's still Roki Sasaki. He's still the guy that was one of the most hyped international prospects ever. So talking about the progression from now, I definitely think that he can continue to grow, because even just looking at this last month, how quickly he's shifted to where, if you asked me a month ago, I would have said, no, I don't think he's going to make it through the season in the big leagues. And I would have said his long-term future might still be in the bullpen, because he hadn't proven that he could throw strikes. He hadn't proven that he could throw a third pitch with that slider. And it's only been a month that all of a sudden those two things have really turned around. And so for a guy that's as talented as he is, and to suddenly trend up as fast as he is and make those adjustments as quickly as he has, really speaks to the ability that he has and the way that he could continue to grow if things continue to go well.
Yeah, I was this side of the organization itself. I was probably one of the guys who was saying, be as patient as possible with this guy, because he's still a project. But I had even gotten to that point by the end of April where it was like, okay, if because we weren't seeing improvement. Right. It felt like everything had stalled with him. And I was like, look, he can't keep doing this in the big leagues. It kind of looks like I have egg on my face at this point, because like almost immediately after that is when he started to kind of look like he was turning the corner to what he was yesterday. So good for Roki for doing that. It definitely takes some mental toughness, and especially for a guy as young as he is, who's coming to a new country, who doesn't speak the language, all of that kind of stuff are big factors. Ryan C says, and I think this might be Pinsanity, our guy Pinsanity here. He says Roki was polarizing because people were delusional as to what he was. I think there are a lot of reasons for that, right? The organization is partly to blame too. They put him up there as, I think, he got compared to Paul Skeens before he'd even thrown a pitch for the Dodgers by the team, that kind of stuff. So it doesn't help. Maddie Man says definitely had unfair expectations for Roki, and I think the point here is that he was always sort of a project, and they did a lot of the development with him. I mean, it's still happening. It's not like it's over, but they have done all of the development with him in the major leagues, in front of the cameras, in the spotlight, where for a lot of these guys, it might happen in Tulsa or it might happen in Oklahoma City. And we don't get to see those struggles all the time. But we're seeing them right up and, front and center, up close with Roki Sasaki. And I think it's probably unfairly for him, hit him with a ton of criticism. But again, it's part of it's what the expectations were, fair or unfair. And in all honesty, probably a bit unfair.
I think that it's a mixture of both, because I think we have to be careful to not be revisionist about the hype that he had, how great he was in Japan. I think that it was totally fair for his expectations to be very high, and he didn't immediately live up to them. There were a lot of reasons for that. I think his stuff didn't translate over to the big league baseball immediately.
His resume too, like, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but his resume was also not what Otani's was, not what Yamamoto's was. But I think we had understood what those guys had been able to do in the big leagues. And so we expected maybe not the same results, but like for there not to be those growing pains for him, I think.
Yeah, there definitely was a people weren't baking in the idea that he could struggle to the equation very much. And that's what happened. I think that the Dodgers are obviously glad that they didn't have to give him the $300 million that multiple organizations would have been happy to step up and give him, because if that happened, if he waited another couple years, then this would have been a much different sort of discussion over this last year, where instead of it just being a young guy who's not quite where he was expected to be, it would have been like the discussion's been around Kyle Tucker, where there's a whole different level of, well, you're getting paid this much, why isn't it happening? So I think we're glad that that hasn't had to be part of the discussion. But ultimately, I think I love the story Joe Davis told on the broadcast yesterday during his outing about all the stuff that he went through as a kid with the tsunami in Japan in his village, and how he just is able to bounce off of struggles and get through it with a perseverance that this kind of stuff doesn't rattle him. And that's something that's going to serve him moving forward. And really, if he didn't have that sort of capability, I don't think he would have been able to bounce back in this last month as well as he has either.
Yeah, that's all fair. JY Kim with another super chat says the big takeaway is that Anthony has to take a trip to Spain every season in May. That was a big catalyst in Roki turning things around. It's some say coincidence, some say it's more than that. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to have to take that trip every early May to Barcelona and to make sure that Roki gets and stays right for the rest of the season. Because I was right around the time when I was like, look, I don't know that this is working at the big leagues. Like, go figure this out in Oklahoma. And then he starts to turn it around. So you know what? Let's talk to the Dodger Blue folks. Maybe they can get me out there.
Or the Dodgers. Maybe the big boys have to come through and make it happen.
Yeah, you know what? Look, you want your money's worth out of Roki, you're just gonna have to send me to Spain in May every single year. I'll take that hit for everyone so that Roki can be the guy that he's turning into. I'll do it.
So nice of you.
I know. I'll put myself out there. It's what we do for the teams that we love, for sure. Okay. There's another thing I want to talk about, and then we'll get to some questions. But first, I do have to talk about one of our other sponsors, which is SeatGeek. And so, Bruce, I have been thinking long and hard in the last 48 hours. That's how long and hard I've been thinking about it. And I've been having conversations with Pops and with my brother. We got to get out to another game soon. And so trying to figure out what dates work and who we want to see them play, and when we might see Otani pitch or when we might see Yamamoto pitch. And so we're trying to figure all that out, and talking about how much tickets cost and all of that, which we all know ticket prices are going up. But it's really nice that we have SeatGeek on our side, because with SeatGeek we are able to ease the cost burden a little bit. We use the code DodgerBlue10 for 10% off tickets on SeatGeek, and that is a big reason why I think that we can go ahead and say you know what, we'll go ahead and we'll take this Friday or this Saturday and we'll go to a ball game. And so it's really nice. That's 10% off any Dodger tickets with that promo code DodgerBlue10 right now. So you can use it. 10% off your next seats, your next set of Dodger tickets. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it. Really cool thing, really nice thing that SeatGeek's doing for us. So thank you, SeatGeek, for that. Much appreciated. I am telling you, I will be using that in the next couple of weeks, most likely.